youth are the ones who are living this problem and are helping us to design the solutions. So RINGO, which is the Research and Independent NGOs, it's a constituency of hundreds and hundreds of universities and think tanks and other independent groups that want to engage in the climate change process at the COPs. And Beth and I began working on this when we first met back at COP19 in Warsaw, Poland in 2013. And we were both leading student delegations where they were a part of our course, and we brought students here to engage and learn and then have an impact as they graduated and went on. And one of the things we noticed is that RINGO, which is heavily research oriented, was a little less teaching, and I think it's fair to say maybe a little older in the researcher paradigm. And we really wanted to bring more young people into it. So Beth, in fact, is the one who started this idea of a young RINGO movement. And what's culminating at this point is we have, just in our session this morning, our coordinating meeting, most of the room are master's student undergrads, but then also master's students, PhD students. And so they're taking their advocacy into their disciplines, various science and humanities, so that they can come here and affect change. So that's a small bit, I think, of how RINGO is acting on the very important question of the youth role in climate change ambition. So for example, one of our former steering committee members is an IPCC author. I can think of another person in the room today who's contributed to various IPCC reports. That kind of work is fundamental to convincing folks that there's a problem. And then in addition, we have a number of, so I'm a lawyer and a law professor, we have a number of political scientists and sociologists who are looking at, like the Working Group 3 does, is policy recommendations, so translating that science into policy.
And so one of the challenges that I think we have is that question of translating where we have research and knowledge, and how do we translate and share that to the communities that need to be taking action and taking action now. And so where do universities and research institutions sit in that space? How can they help catalyze local climate action? How can they help support climate action on the ground? And I think universities are really starting to engage with one another and engage with their local communities in answering that question. You see universities both as, like I said earlier, often they're large employers, they occupy physical space, so there's a way to lead by example. And then there's a way to share, here's what we're doing and how do we share best practices, how do we share kind of what we're doing operationally with the communities within which we live. And then also, how do we share in other ways? So as an example, many universities, well, all universities teach, right? That's part of our core mission of what we do is to teach. But when we're thinking about how do we go about teaching and how do we work with our students? And so many of our universities use that space as a way to connect with our communities. That we'll have a class of students and they'll be working on a particular project, say greenhouse gas emissions, and perhaps as part of their class, they can actually help calculate greenhouse gas emissions for a local community. So they're learning how to do it, but at the same time, the local community is able to benefit from that learning. And so ways in which we can continue to implement and strengthen those types of practices is something that I think is really important to many of our members.